We have talked about. We are going to chat a little bit with the main dude, the main guy at the ACO. We've got Frank Geers with us. Frank, how we doing there after the big ACL Worlds? We're still walking and talking, I hope.
We are still walking and talking, man, and enjoying life. And I got about 3 days off, maybe. And those 3 days off are unloading vehicles and preparing already for next season, World Championships in Branson, Missouri. But Bradenton, my friend, was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in just a second. Tell us a little bit about you, Frank. How you got, for those of you listening to this and maybe aren't familiar with the ACO and how it all got going. How did it get going for you? Tell us a little bit about your history, now being the CEO of ACO.
The ACO is something that I founded back in 2005. We incorporated, actually, I conceived it in 2004. At that time, there was really, the game of cornhole had already been out there. People were playing it, at little tailgating functions, and they saw it show up at a couple little weddings and stuff like that. And I was in the marketing business, always looking for a creative way to market a company, and came across this game where I thought, oh man, this is a really cool way to put logos on bags and logos on boards. And, so that's how I actually got started in the industry. And as soon as I started doing that, I was watching people play this game and starting to take it a little bit serious back in 2005. So with the partners that I had in place, I had suggested that we, look at developing this beyond the backyard, beyond just products. And that's when I conceived the idea that this thing could become a sport. And, we went out and worked with a couple different manufacturing facilities to develop the perfect board. We were able to do that. Today, you'll see a lot of boards, are modeled after the ACO Tournament Series board. It was a piece of furniture. I was out selling boards at $300+ when people were building them in their garage for, 50 and 80 bucks. But to this day, people that bought boards 15, 20 years ago, they're still the best boards on the planet. And we continue to offer and sell those boards, our tournament series boards, at our website and stuff like that. And so we started with the product side, and it rolled into the bags as well. So with the bags, right about that same time, we were working with a client called Carnival Cruise. Carnival Cruise was bought our boards, bought our bags, put them on their ships. People were playing the sport, and that's one of the ways the sport started to get spread internationally, was because we had put it on Carnival cruise ships back in the early 2000s. And but one of the things that happened on the cruise ships was the bags were getting mildewy, and the bags were having rodents eat them and such. So they had asked us Joel, if we could come up with a better product.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was working with an uncle of mine, Scott Morris, and he was an upholsterer, and he was the one that was making our bags in the early days. And I was sitting there watching as we were sewing the bags out with the corn in it, and I conceived the idea of putting plastic pellets into the bags, as a way of getting rid of the issue with the rodents, as a way of keeping consistency in the bag weight. Because as corn has the tendency to break down, it powderizes, it dehydrates the bugs, the rodents, et cetera, like we just talked about. So this was what I did for Carnival Cruise and Carnival Cruise was ultimately the reason that you now see the industry moved over to, playing with plastic pellets in the bags. But along those same lines, when I was working with my uncle on making these early bags out of his shop, I was in his place one day looking at, and an upholsterer, works on furniture and stuff like that.
Sure.
So he had all the equipment to sew out these bags in the early days. And one of the things is I was just sitting there in the shop waiting for something to happen here. I'm sifting through the upholstery books, looking at the fabric, and I said, Scott, what do you think about the idea of sewing two fabrics together? Can we come up with a fabric that might play a little bit slower on the board? And can we come up with a fabric that might be able to play, faster on the board? So conceive the concept of a two-sided bag back then as well. And my thought behind it, Joel, was the idea of creating, more strategy to the game, right? Where you have a slick side and a stick side. where with the stick side, you're able to throw a blocker, right? Because in the old days, there was 4 basic shots to the game, but as the game has evolved, there's the flop shot and all these other shots that are coming around as players have gotten better and better over the years. But the 4 traditional shots and still, the anchor shots to the sport is the slide shot, right, which is the easiest shot, throwing it, below the hole and letting it funnel to the hole. There's the blocker bag that you set down in front of the hole and blocks the person sliding to it. Now you're going to, try to go for an air mail, which is the 3rd shot. And then there's the push shot, which is just, driving through both bags. But, through my uncle and me just sitting in the shop, we also conceived the 2-sided bag over 15 years ago now. So then as I was doing that, Carson Palmer, who was a football player for the Cincinnati Bengals for all these years as a quarterback, had decided to, instead of doing a golf raising fundraiser or a fundraiser using the sport of golf, he decided he was going to use cornhole. And so I was able to reach out to him and his group, and we got involved with the Carson Palmer Foundation. And way back when, in conjunction with Carson Palmer and the Cincinnati Bengals, ran a huge corporate outing, down there with Carson Palmer at the Cincinnati Bengals, fields and stuff like that. And during that time was when we really kind of conceived the whole movement towards the sport of cornhole. Creating the idea of singles play. So I was the first one out there ever to conceive the idea of singles play, the idea that, an individual, because in all sports, you think about golf and tennis and stuff like that, people want to know who the best player is on the planet. I mean, you don't necessarily remember the doubles team in tennis, but you remember the doubles or the singles player in tennis. And so we pushed towards the idea of creating a singles, and people didn't get it at first, but it wasn't really complicated. It wasn't that somebody else wasn't going to someday think about it. It was just that we just were the first ones to conceive it as we were, pushing towards the development of the idea of taking this backyard game and making it into a sport.
Sure.
So we ran our first world championship in northern Kentucky at the convention center there. And, we ran a singles division and a doubles division, and it's tied to another sports festival. So cornhole was one of a multitude of sports that were in this winter festival that went on in Cincinnati and northern Kentucky. But that's kind of a little bit of the history. I know I probably spoke longer than you wanted.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So question for a friend would be, were you aware that the progression of cornhole is totally reliant on rodents wanting to eat the corn? That's the question, because because if rodents hadn't eaten that corn, we might not have had that progression, right? Thank God for the rodents.
Right, my friend. Who knows where the sport would be today?
That's pretty fun. That's pretty funny progression. So now we're at the point here, Frank, where we're getting that, and I'm sure you battle with this, that balance between the pro level, the really good player, and that really is driving the popularity of the sport. And then you have the social, maybe the middle player that likes to play but isn't committed to it, and getting them all to play together at tournaments, which they can do, and kind of finding that balance, because they all kind of feed into the success of this cornhole sport, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the social and the recreational players are really the keys and the foundation to the sport, because some of those social and recreational players will eventually evolve into being the greatest players on the planet. And the one thing that's kind of neat about the ACO and the way we operate is recreational and social players have the opportunity to go out there and compete, head to head. Now, they might get beat down the first few times that they're out there, but the only way to get better in the game is to go out there and play people that are better than you. And the way we've set ourselves up, there's plenty of play for the social and recreational player, but we give those players the opportunity to go out and play against the Gary Fergusons of the world, and the Eric Docklines of the world, and the Tanner Halberts of the world, and the Caleb Hertz of the world, and the Jeremiah Ellis's of the world, and all these great players that compete in the ACO. But you coming off the street as a first-time player can get involved in our system and be competing against them, right out the gate, through these majors and regionals. And that's what I love about this sport of cornhole, is it's an accessible sport for all men and women across the world, really, because of the ease of entry. But no, it's interesting to see. And, one of the problems that we faced in the early days is all the players, the ACO from the beginning was the professional level cornhole, the highest grade of cornhole coming through the ACO. And that honestly, Joel, scared a lot of people from wanting to compete in the ACO because they were afraid of coming out and getting beat up. And so midstream, we tried to pull out a recreational league within our system. So one year we ran a social division alongside of our competitive, pro division. But what we noticed there was another issue where people were embarrassed to go and play in the recreational social division, and they were embarrassed to play in the pro division. So it's fun to see where the sport has come, and as more and more people have gotten engaged in it, and more companies have been out there, whether it's bag companies, cornhole groups, across the country, some affiliated with the ACO, some not. It's all working for the ultimate, goal, which is has been from the beginning for me to make cornhole the world's biggest sport, the world's most played game. I mean, that's been a goal of mine since the beginning, and I've mentioned that on interview after interview over the last 20 years. And it feels like it's on pace right now to one day, reach that goal and that belief of where I thought from the beginning that could go. I mean, Joel, it's funny. There are people laughing at me, 20 years ago, but it's great to see where it is now, being, televised and everything else that we're taking and doing with it. It's an exciting place to be right now in the world.
And you talk about going to tournaments and playing against some of the best. First major I ever played in 3 years ago, Matt Guy, Brett Guy, Jeff Link, and others were all there. And I was looking around like, I just kind of started this game. What am I doing? But that is one of the intriguing part, is that you can, how many other sports can you play tennis where Djokovic is on the other side of the net for a match? Or, I mean, it really is, because the way the tournaments are set up, it gives you that opportunity to see them, to maybe play against them, and then maybe adjust to a tier 2 or 3, maybe where you belong at that time. But that does intrigue a lot of people to come to those ACO majors, doesn't it?
It does, and you just hit on it, the tier 2 and tier 3. I mean, that's the way it works, right? It gives you the chance to go, get beat by Tiger Woods, right, in a game of golf, and then drop down to, compete against Frank Geers in tier 2. Like you said, so
tier 2 is that a little bit of a stretch there, tier 2 or tier 3?
Yeah, I'm more like a tier 3.
All right. I'm just going by what Bob Heil told me. All right, that's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, Bobby. I've beat Bobby plenty of times. I'm going to have to take him on head-to-head. No, Bob Heil has really become a extraordinary player. So excited to see the development of his game for sure.
Let's talk about the ACL Worlds this past week, because it was a very unique one in the fact that we had a lot of new names in there. You got to that final 8 of singles, and some people were just like, who's that? Who's that? And where's this person and this person? And I saw some good pros getting what we call O2 barbecued right away in that final. There were some new names, some new faces, and there continues every year, Frank, to be players that, that just add to that list of really, really top level players.
Well, that's a fact. I mean, and again, as the sport continues, we've only scratched the surface. I mean, I know there's players out there for sure that have never even picked up a bag yet in their life that are going to win the King of Cornhole, or be our queen. That's the other cool thing, Joel, that we didn't even talk about, is how good these women are, right? These women that are competing. Now, there were no women in the top 8 there, at the World Championships this year, but there are plenty of talented women out there in the world of cornhole. And one of these days, we are going to end up crowning, as an ACO World Champion, a female player. Yeah. But yeah, for this year's World Championship, what people also don't get is how grueling the World Championships is. And we don't set it up purposely to do this. It's just a lot of cornhole you're trying to get in that week. And on the day that you're running, singles and doubles and pounding through all that, I mean, people joke about, not having to be, athletic or in shape or condition to play the sport, but no, that's true. That's what makes it kind of fun is you don't have to be necessarily in the greatest shape to win a game. But if you're going to win the world championships, you've got to have some super mental strength as well as some pretty good physical endurance. But yeah, we had some great players that ended up in that final stretch, and the final four was interesting too because we had our number one player, in the season, the guy that was on course with multiple majors wins, arguably the greatest season that any single ACO player has ever had, and Caleb, Hurt, running the way he did this past season, winning just about every single major that he ended up showing up at. And then you have, a guy like, Cole Brewer, who a new young kid. I think this was his first season, I believe, with the ACO. But a young kid, very talented in that Final Four field. And then Austin Schlobaum, has been there, done that. Very successful player in the ACO, and he ended up being not only in the championship of the singles, but he was in the championship of the doubles. So he was in the position to potentially, sweep the two biggest events of ours, at the World Championships, and just fell a little short. And Gary, I mean, Gary Ferguson, he's not a player that is an unknown. I mean, he first played, I guess he was telling me about 15 years ago in his first major with the ACO that Russell Tabers was helping us run, and ended up playing Russell and beating Russell that year. And he said part of that was because Russell was focused on helping to run the tournament. But I saw Gary at the conference championships in the Big South here when we were down in Memphis at Graceland back in June. And I watched him, roll through the field to get to the championship match, I believe, against Justin Duke out there. So Gary was not somebody that was a sleeper. I mean, he's a guy that can play this game and can play it at an elite level. I mean, I think in our interview with Gary last night, I discovered that he had beat Tanner Halbert, just about 3-4 months ago at some tournament. So and you know who Tanner Halbert is, obviously one of the greatest players on the planet, and in the ACO system. So it was a great field. It was a lot of new names that surfaced to the top, and then there were some old names there at the top. So so a great tournament though.
Yeah, people can check out all the results at bracketlope.com. Just search ACO and you'll see everything that happened in there. Lots of different things going on besides just the singles and doubles majors. We're talking with Frank Geers, the CEO, the main man of ACO, American Cornhole Organization. And I think the one word, we're going to get to our over-under game that we do with everybody here in just a second, have a little fun. But I think the one word, for me anyway, Frank, that describes why cornhole is so intriguing. And I realized this after I played a game of horseshoes a couple weeks ago, which I'm horrible at. Strategy. Strategy is something that other games like this lack. In cornhole, you can play defense, and you can disrupt some of the greatest players that play this game if you can play a strategy game. I think that's the word that really intrigues people about this game.
It is, and some of the strategy I feel has been lost over the last probably 5 to 6 years as the bags have kind of taken a movement towards a change to, players love the feeling of sliding a bag into the hole or getting a bag to go into the hole. There's no doubt that does a good thing for an individual player, and for the fun of the game. But I think it's kind of gone a little bit too far in that direction where it has become, almost too easy to put the bag in the hole once you get skilled enough to, throw it straight. I don't know if you saw, Joel, the event that we ran in Branson, Missouri, which was, we've got a TV show that's in the development, and we ran a $20,000 first place prize event there that was a made for TV show that we're working on. And one of the things we did there, and this was old school OG type of stuff, is what the ACO did for the first 10, 12 years of our existence was, we provided the boards and the bags, for the players. We're not going to go back to that, on our tour, because we love having all these new bag manufacturing, people out there that are helping to grow the industry and stuff like that. So I think that was a good move for the overall industry to open up, the ability for players to bring their own boards and bags there. But, what we do want to do is with this TV tour and show that we're creating is, we're going to go back to, supplying the boards and the bags specifically for that show to have a true bag that has a stick and a slick side, because when you have that true bag that plays that way, excuse me, hold on.
We're with Frank Geers, ACO, main dude. And it was, you're talking about Branson, and I was actually there at Branson. I was in the cheering section for Machine Gun Geiger and for Big Time Bob. So yeah, that was a very unique type format. And it was, to be honest with you, when I was watching it, people were kind of taken back. Just like, it was just so different that people were a little bit shocked by it. But now that you're kind of explaining what the whole goal of that is, it kind of makes sense a little bit.
So the idea with it is again, to supply the players. So all things are equal. So now the equipment isn't beating a player is beating a player, right? And with playing with our OG bags, the bags that have a true stick and true slick side, it brings to the table what you were talking about a minute ago, which is true strategies to the game. Whether you're going to throw that blocker or not, makes a difference. Or are you just going to try to go toe to toe, slide into the hole? Are you going to do a flop shot or an airmail? Or, so it makes for the opportunity to generate and create, more fun, more interesting shots, I think, in the game. Not that they don't end up coming every now and then, with these slick bags, but it is so much easier to go to the hole with today's new age bags than it was of yesteryear's bags, where you truly had to be a talented player to win playing with those types of bags.
Yeah, and adjusting to the conditions and such like that too.
Adjusting to the conditions as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, Frank, let's we do a little something called over under here, kind of like the Vegas thing. I give you a number and what it means, and you tell me if it's over or under the number. So here we go. 544, Frank, the number of times that you've had a team in a tournament named the Great Cornholios. 544. Over or under that? What did you think, Frank?
It's close. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go under on that one.
People like to have a lot of fun naming their teams. You always get one, don't you? That kind of makes you laugh a little bit.
Oh, we do. We had a few of them this weekend, or this week at the Tailgater event at the World Championships. There were some fun ones coming out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to ask them to clean it up just a little bit. I got to be honest.
Just a little bit. All right. 7, Frank. 7, over under. The number of hours that Pro Bob Heil has to travel for any major. That's 7, over or under that? We got to get one a little closer for Big Time Bob here, don't we?
It's got to be over because of where he lives and you guys live, because you guys, I thought I was putting one close to you when I would put one up there in Traverse, Michigan annually for us, but I think it's like an 8-hour, 9-hour drive for him to get around
the lake.
Over to it.
But there are people that do that, and you get some of the remote areas like we live in up here. And it's amazing the hours, and some retired guys, they'll hop on planes and they'll fly to all these majors, won't they?
Yeah, they'll fly and drive. On that subject, one of our goals, we've got 11 conferences in the country, and this is just a quick explanation of, we've got 31 majors already lined up for our players across the country this coming year, from Panama City Beach to Las Vegas, Nevada. And what we try to do, Joel, is within those conferences, ultimately our goal is to have 9 majors playing out from September to May in each of those conferences. Well, my ultimate goal and our company's ultimate goal is to try to put 3 majors in striking distance of every player in the United States within a 4 to 6 hour drive time at the max. So that way, as an individual player, you do have the opportunity to be competitive, compete, and not have to travel all that far, to max out points within the ACO. And again,
Sure.
Make it accessible to all players across the country, even players like Bob Heil.
You know, if we could just drain Lake Michigan, some of those would be a lot closer. We could just drive right across.
we have one in Beloit. We have one in Beloit,
Yep.
Wisconsin. That's not too far from them.
And Cedar Rapids a little close too. Yeah, so we're good.
Yeah.
We're getting good up here. All right, Frank. 17. The number of times that you told the ACO guys in Bradenton, Florida, God, would you please put your shirt back on? 17. Over or under that?
I'm gonna go with over.
I'm thinking so too. It sounded like people. That was a great location for the Worlds, wasn't it, in Bradenton?
It was a spectacular location for the Worlds, and we had people. We had a lot of people sticking around to hang out with us, but then then also you're wondering, well, where did everybody go? Well, shoot, they went out to Anna Marie Island to spend time on the beach. They're out playing golf when they get knocked out of the tournament.
Yeah.
So that's one of the cool things that we do, Joel, with our World Championships too, is try to put it in places that are family friendly, so the whole clan can come down and enjoy the week-long event that has become the World Championships. And I think a lot of players actually came in 2 to 3 days early. I know there was players there for 9-10 days, in Bradenton, and it is a beautiful community. And that's why we're excited about Branson, Missouri too next year, because it is a vacation destination. And if you've not been to Branson, Joel, you definitely, you did. You just told me you were at Branson, and for the, it's a great community, isn't it?
It is.
That whole area.
It's a small town feel too. That's what's cool about Branson. You're down there with that big convention center and a big hotel, but it feels like small town America down there in Branson. It does.
That little strip of restaurants and bars down there is it's going to be fun. And you say small town America. I mean, it is kind of cool when the ACO is able to go into these cities like Owensboro and Knoxville, Tennessee, and stuff like that. And they have really great convention centers, great downtowns. But when you're in those cities, the city is recognizing and feeling that economic impact and that boom. And all these restaurants are going crazy with these people coming in wearing their cornhole gear and swag, and and that's what's great about the whole family of cornhole, and the people within the ACO and the cornhole community is they are family oriented. They do have a lot of fun together. They like to drink, listen to music, but they're all great people.
Yeah, you may have to get some ACO branded sunscreen too. There's some people that forgot to put that on. Speaking of taking their shirts off, so I'd have to do that if you get a warm.
I saw that photo.
All right, so 2,654 is the number, Frank. The number of times that people have come up to you at a tournament and said, "What court am I throwing on?"
Well, I would have to say that was over with Kat and LaBelle, but I'm going to go with under. It's probably a couple hundred under that, but it was very close, dude. Very close.
Yeah. Okay. Final one here. 9. The number of times that people have asked you, what's the difference between the ACO and the ACL? Do you think the two organizations, Frank, are serving the same purpose, or do you think each one kind of has their own individual thing that they bring to the game?
I think they're both serving the same purpose of trying to grow the sport. I think they're doing it slightly different ways. But both of us are trying to grow the sport, and we've been dedicated to bringing cornhole consistently to television for 20 years. We've been dedicated to making and developing the sport of cornhole. We are the founding fathers to the sport. But they, along with a number of other organizations out there, have been helping to continue to blaze the road to growing this. But we're very, very pleased and happy with the direction that we're going and taking the sport of cornhole, and enjoy seeing what everybody else is out there doing, and watching and making it happen.
Season 17 starts right away in September. They can go to American Cornhole Organization, ACO website, and you guys do a great job of listing majors. They can find regionals going on in their area. There's a lot of great opportunities for people to play competitively in season 17, right?
Absolutely. And we are now getting ready to put out, in probably a week, it'll be out there, the player's guide for next season. We are out there canvassing the country to bring a lot of new certified officials on board. Most of our certified officials will be sticking with us this coming year. So we expect to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 certified officials this year, based on the growth of what's happening. I mean, we more than doubled our player base this past year. Some exciting stuff happening with our YouTube channel at youtube.com/American Cornhole. We went from just short of 3 million minutes viewed a year ago to over 13 million minutes viewed in the last 12 months just on our YouTube channel. So a lot of great growth going on there. And internationally, some exciting stuff that we're working on from an international standpoint. But the season starts September, first week of September. And I believe our first major of the year is in Charleston, West Virginia. We had 13 sellouts of 25 majors this past year. That's pretty exciting. I'm expecting nothing but growth with these majors. We've added, I think, 6 to 7 new majors this year. We've retained 23 of the 25. And we are pumped. I got to tell you, Joel, we are pumped with where we're headed and some of the neat announcements we're going to be able to start making over the next month to 4 months as we get involved with season 17. So cannot wait to first of all relax for a couple days, but then really kick it into gear with season 17.
Looking forward to it, Frank. And we thank you for taking time to join us, and thanks to you and the crew for all you guys, what you do to promote the sport and really the accessibility, because when you go to a major, you guys are busy, and you guys, I think all of you do a great job in really making all levels of players feel welcome at these events. And that's why they call it the ACO family. And we really do treat each other like family. And I think that's why people love to play at these ACO events.
Well, it's really important. One last thing for you. I mean, it is really important for us to, it's about the experience. I mean, we believe in the highest level competition, no doubt about that. We want the competition to be the best on the planet, which it is. But more important than even that to me is these men and women that travel to compete in a major. We understand that they're spending a lot of their time, quality time, that they could be doing something else, and spending a lot of their money, their hard-earned money throughout the year to come and travel and be a part of the ACO. So it's really important to me and the company that we give these people the best experience that they can, where they walk away not disappointed necessarily that they lost, but excited by the fact that they had a great time with us. That's what's most important to me and the ACO, as we continue to build on the ACO family and the sport of cornhole.
All right. We'll see you down the line, Frank. Thank you for taking time to join us. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, bud. Take care.
You bet. Frank Geers, he is the CEO. He is the main man. Oh, I was gonna end. He's gone, isn't he? Oh, I was gonna have him end with this line: "Keep on pitching," but I let him go there. So thanks to Frank Geers, CEO, main guy. Great information about the ACO, and I love ACO and I love ACL too. It just happens where I live that ACO is more accessible to me where I live. So we will talk ACL next week. Next week's show, which will drop on Thursday, we will have Trey Ryder, who is the voice